Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Actually, they're not protesters, and many of them are not even students. This business out at UC Berkeley and a so-called free speech movement, which violently stops any speech that these people don't want to hear. And the real story out of Berkeley is this. There was only one arrest. There should have been 10, 15, 20, 30 arrests, but there was only one. Anyway, greetings, folks. Great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh, once again, with broadcast excellence during the fastest week in media. Already Thursday of Super Bowl week. I have to tell you something. I haven't cared as little about a Super Bowl as I care about this ever. This is Super Bowl 51. I don't remember ever being this apathetic about Are you excited about the Super Bowl, Wendy? Are you ever excited? Oh, well, okay, never. What about you? Well, I know the Cowboys aren't in it, but Sturdley he's become a football fan. Really, I am not interested in this. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether the rest of the news is so absorbing and dominating and is requiring so much attention. Because, folks, I have never seen anybody, I have never seen anybody act as fast as Donald Trump is acting. I have never seen anybody attempt to implement as much as soon as Trump is going for here. And it is a challenge keeping up with it. Because I know what your expectations are. You tune in here every day expecting to have the ultimate final word on every controversial matter. And I am determined to provide that for you. I'm determined to meet those expectations, and it takes a lot of time. I don't know if it's also because I learned that the cast of Hamilton and Lady Gaga are going to be performing, which is clearly an anti-Trump move by the NFL. And then this whole business, the way the press is dealing with Tom Brady and Belichick and the owner of the Patriots regarding their friendship with Kraft, I don't know. And just the general way football is being reported in the past couple of years, I don't know, folks. I'm not, right now, I don't know. I'm going to watch it, but I am not doing anything special. And I'm not going to turn the TV on much before kickoff. I'm not getting into the spirit of the day. I'm going to watch the game, and I'll probably, depending on what happens, I'm expecting a rout, but I'm not going to tell you which way yet. That's another thing. I'm expecting the game to be a blowout. I'll tell you which way I think it's going to go later on. Let's start here with the fake news, because there's a lot of it out there today. I had a story. I was talking to the vice president yesterday in the program, and I told him that I had a list of stories, 30 fake news stories, 30 out-and-out lies in just the last 5 days, and that was yesterday. And, of course, we add more to them today. And it's always a bit of a fun challenge to determine where to start with the fake news on each and every day. How about the AP's report that Trump threatened the president of Mexico? The AP reported that Trump called the president of Mexico and said, look, if you don't take care of those bad hombres down there that you've got, we're going to send in the American military to do it. The AP claimed that Trump told the Mexican president, Enrique Peña Nieto, that in effect, if he didn't take care of their bad hombres down there, that we would send in the U.S. military. And the Washington Post and others in the drive-bys ran with the AP story. Even the AP story, if you read deep enough down to it, article admitted that Mexico denied that version of events. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the president of Mexico is not a credible source. He was on the call, but his sourcing is not credible if he doesn't go along with the primary narrative of the story. The narrative is that Trump got on the phone, bullied the president of Mexico, and threatened to send troops to get rid of bad hombres. The head honcho of Mexico said, no, it didn't happen. But they say we can't count on this guy as a source. Even the foremost purveyor of fake news, CNN, and they are. I don't think there's anybody even close. to CNN in terms of fake news. Maybe BuzzFeed running a close second, but man, and they're all tightly bunched in there. But CNN clearly leading the pack in fake news. They even called the AP out on their report. Even CNN, the primary purveyors of fake news, questioned the AP report that Trump called the president of Mexico and said, we're sending the troops in if you don't get rid of bad hombres down there. CNN said that the readout of the call that they saw showed that Trump was offering aid, not making threats. He was offering to help the president of Mexico get rid of the bad hombres they've got down there. That's a huge difference. You know how many people ran with a fake story? How many of you believe that Trump was on the phone with the president of Mexico today and threatened him? Threatened to send troops? Many of you are probably going, right on. Now you're disappointed that it isn't true. Right? Many of you are like, that's right, we need to send the military down there and clean that place out. And now you're finding out it isn't true. You're a little disappointed. And then Australia. This is a big one. First thing you have to understand, the current Prime Minister of Australia is practically a carbon copy clone of the new left-wing child socialist in Canada. What's his name, Trudeau? Justin Trudeau. You know, the guy in Australia is a little older than Justin Trudeau, but he's still wacko leftist. And the drive-by media are having conniptions over Trump's phone call to the Australian Prime Minister. His name is Malcolm Turnbull. Now, in this call, Trump supposedly denounced as dumb the deal that Obama had struck where the United States would trade some illegal aliens from Central America for the 1,200 refugees from Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan. Refugees that Australia will not let into their country. What this is really all about is that they're Central American refugees and Australia won't let them in. Australia won't let them in. They send them here. And Trump said, the hell with that. And even addressed this at the prayer breakfast today, telling people our country is under assault. There are people taking advantage of our country, and it's going to stop. And he said, I don't want you to be nervous what you hear about these calls. And he's talking about these two news reports about the phone calls he had with these two leaders in Australia and Mexico. And he was calming, he was comforting. He even prayed for Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the media is having another commitment. Have you heard about this? Schwarzenegger keeps dumping on Trump for his executive order. Schwarzenegger is as part of the never-ending chorus, we are a nation of immigrants, and if we do not let the immigrants in, we are Americans, and you can let the immigrants in. And he's misrepresenting Trump's executive order. So Trump today asked everybody at the prayer breakfast to pray for Schwarzenegger's ratings. Schwarzenegger is the new host of The Apprentice, taking over for Trump. Trump made a big deal of pointing out that Schwarzenegger's ruining the show, that the ratings are down in the cellar compared to where they were when Trump was the host. And he called out Mark Burnett, who was the partner creator of The Apprentice, and said that Mark knows the score, and Mark is very protective of the show. And everybody knows that Arnold's ratings are tanking. Big Hollywood star thought they'd do better than Trump with a big Hollywood star, Trump says, and they're dying. So he asked everybody to pray for Arnold's. Now, the drive-bys have literally no levity, no possibility of levity. They have no sense of humor whatsoever. I watched two different panel discussions on CNN about this today, where they had a bunch of think tankers in there and history professors and political science experts from Princeton and Yale and whatever wringing their hands over Trump being distracted by irrelevant concerns, questioning Trump's mental stability, whether or not Trump is literally mentally disabled, because they say he can't let go of the past. He has to continue to tell people everything he did in the past was bigger and better than everybody else, even going so far as to point out failures, people who replace him who fail, and they say he is obsessed, and they can't laugh. Now, part of it wasn't funny. I mean, Trump, he said so on this program, and he says it every time he's asked. If you hit him, he's going to hit you back. If you attack him, he's going to retaliate. If you impugn him or his family or his policies, he's going to fire rat-tat-tat right back at you. This is something people are not accustomed to, particularly on the Republican side. On the Republican side, you just take it, turn the other cheek, and you act gentlemanly about it and understand, well, this is the price one pays for entering public life. Particularly when you're president of the United States, everybody's going to be coming at you. You have to just accept it and not respond to everybody. But it's not Trump. But you add that to the fact they don't have any sense of humor. I laughed myself silly when I saw him pray for asking people to pray for Schwarzenegger's ratings. And the audience at the prayer, they weren't offended. Did you think they were offended? There's no way. They looked at that. Might have been stunned, but wait a minute. Why do you think someone might have been stunned? Because you think it's a crazy thing to pray for? Well, don't be so fool. What do you mean? At the prayer breakfast, yes, of course the prayer breakfast is always solemn, but it was a solemn request for a prayer for Schwarzenegger. But if you're thinking it's an odd prayer, it's not an odd prayer. I once dated a woman that prayed for parking spaces when she went to the mall. I said, what? You really? I had to be very careful with this. I said, you might think it's a waste of God's time. No, the Lord says, ask anything. So she did. She asked for parking. She didn't always get them, but sometimes they opened up. I'm not making it up. So a prayer for Schwarzenegger's ratings, I guarantee you, would not be out of the mainstream. The real question is, did Trump really mean it? Does he want Schwarzenegger's ratings to get better or not? No, that would be the question. Look, more on this Australia business here, folks. I'm in a kind of a jocular mood today, but there's some serious stuff. By the way, the John Basso of Wyoming, another Republican committee just said, to hell with you Democrats, and they went ahead and confirmed, or going to confirm, have a vote in the EPA nominee. They did it. It's done. And this is a great nominee for the EPA. This is an absolute terrific guy. And the Democrats, just like yesterday, said, we're not showing up. We're not showing up. And the Republicans said, fine, if you're not showing up, we're going to do the vote without you. And they did it 2 days in a row. Orrin Hatch yesterday confirmed both Mnuchin at Treasury and Metal Block. What's the other guy that was confirmed? It was the EP. It was Tom Price at Health and Human Services. Those two were confirmed yesterday. Well, they passed out a committee, and they'll go to the full Senate. Both days, 2 days in a row, the Democrats refused to participate, and the Republicans, in the old days, they would have waited for the Democrats to, finish whatever they were doing and then show back up, and because the Republicans would want to make it look like they were being fair and understanding and tolerant. But now, fine, you don't want to show up. We've learned a little bit more also about Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who have said they're going to vote against Betsy DeVos. We may have stumbled into one of the reasons why. Apparently, they are both heavily funded by teachers' unions. Apparently, both Collins and Murkowski receive significant funding, as in donations, as in contributions, from teachers' unions and other related unions. And I made the point the other day that it's not always Republican cowardice that causes them to appear to be betraying the party cause. In many cases, and it's not fear of the media, not alone. It oftentimes is their paymasters. who it is that's donating to them that dictate how they vote and comment. Now, on this Australia business, Australia has been under intense pressure from its citizens to not allow immigrants into their country. This is something that you'll not know if all you're reading today is the story about Trump's phone call to the Australian Prime Minister. But the citizens of Australia don't want any part of these worldwide refugees and illegal immigrants because they have been flooded with boat people, many of them coming from Muslim Indonesia. Australia's current government and its two leading political parties, the ruling Liberal National Coalition and the Labour opposition, both of Australia's main parties support tough asylum policies. And they have a coalition government there. And it made Australia's asylum policy even tougher when they took power in 2013, 3.5 years ago. They introduced something called Operation Sovereign Borders, which put the military in control of asylum operations in Mexico. You think what's happening here is strange. In Australia, they're dead serious. They don't want any part of it. They don't want any of these boat people refugees from Islamic nations in Indonesia. They don't want Central American refugees. They don't want illegal immigration. They've seen what's happened to Europe. They see what's happening in the United States. They don't want any part of it. As such, there's an agreement. Obama had an agreement with Australia. Okay, whoever you don't want, send to the United States. Did you know that, folks? Obama had an agreement with Australia. Fine, if you don't want the Muslims from Indonesia, if you don't want the boat people from Central America or wherever else they're from, then send them to the United States. We'll take some of them. The government of Australia, I'm going to nick a time here, but the government of Australia says that its policies have restored the integrity of its borders. Even asylum seekers are found to be actual refugees. They're not allowed to be settled in Australia. They're sent to an offshore processing center. But Obama, go ahead and send, and that's what Trump's objecting to. We're not just going to keep our borders open. I mean, the rest of the nations of the world cannot dump their problems on us. That's all he's saying. Exactly what he said he would do during the campaign, folks. Exactly. What the heck is this? I'm watching fake news. It's a CNN. Trump, moments ago in the White House grounds, meeting with executives from Harley-Davidson, the motorcycle people. Now, how many of you had heard that Harley-Davidson had pulled out of a meeting with Trump because they were afraid of backlash from customers and protesters and anarchists and whatever? I distinctly remember. I remember when I read it, I got kind of mad at Harley-Davidson. Turns out it was fake news. Now, maybe Trump was going to visit their plant. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Trump was going to go there, and they changed it and brought Harley-Davidson to Washington. But still, the news was that Harley-Davidson had pulled out, didn't want any part of it. And there, the meeting, I'm watching the videotape of it take place. It was just moments ago. Let me just a slight correction on this Australia business. I want to get this battened down. Exactly what happened. It's very close, but here's what really happened. Obama was trading people from Central America for 1,500 or so Muslim refugees from Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan that were languishing in Australia, essentially in New Guinea. So Obama agreed to take the militant Islamist refugees off of Australia's hands in exchange for trading 1,500 or so, well, I don't know what the number was, but people from Central America. So Australia got to choose. They said, we don't want militant Islamists here. I mean, we'll help you out on the refugee side, but we don't want any militant Islamists. And Obama said, fine, we will take the militant Islamists. And that's what Trump said. Wait a minute. The rest of the world doesn't get to decide what it wants to do, and then we pick up the pieces. This all raises the question, why would Australia be willing to take peaceful, so-called peaceful Central American refugees, but not those from Muslim countries? I mean, who are the real Islamophobes here? It isn't Trump. Trump is just doing what he said he was going to do in the campaign, and that is defend and protect this country and make sure the other nations of the world do not take advantage of us. Anyway, McCain fell for the fake news side of this and called the Australian ambassador and said, "It's not a big deal. I'll fix it. Don't worry about it." I have details on this coming up. Don't go away. Yeah, that's what it was. Harley Davidson. They just moved the meeting from the Harley Davidson factory in Wisconsin to the White House. The story was all over the media yesterday that Harley Davidson wanted no part of Trump. They're going to have a meeting with Trump at their plant, their factory, at their whatever in Wisconsin. And then they started getting threatening tweets and threatening emails. And the story was that Harley Davidson said, "We don't like Trump that much. Get the hell. We don't want a meeting at all." And they cancel it. And so the news is out. Harley Davidson, and they were celebrated, by the way. Harley Davidson cancels meeting with Trump over threat of protest. And then today, there's Harley Davidson at the White House. They just moved the meeting to the White House, which is pretty cool for the Harley Davidson people. They were outside on the grounds. There's a couple of bikes there that they were demoing for Trump. And it all went, but the thrust of the story, fake news again, Harley Davidson wanted nothing to do with Trump. And they were afraid that if the meeting was held, that people would protest, and Harley Davidson didn't want any part of that. Not true. They were happy to travel to Washington for the meeting, and there's videotape of it. If they're afraid of protests, I mean, they're going to happen regardless. You know, which is this Berkeley business, and Milo Yiannopoulos, the editor at Breitbart, openly gay conservative, challenges political correctness from college campus to college campus. And there's two schools of thought on what is happening. One of the schools of thought is that the students at these universities, Berkeley being the most recent, they're just so scared, that they're so frightened of anybody showing up that's going to say anything that they don't agree with. It makes them really frightened that they go bonkers and they start burning down buildings and destroying property and trying to injure people in order to show their dissatisfaction and want this guy coming to campus to make a speech. The other school of thought is that this really isn't student-centered, that it is professional rent-a-mob focused, bought and paid for by leftist organizations, and that the real protesters are not students, that they are black-clad, they wear masks or other kind of paraphernalia on their faces to hide their identity. They show up with explosives and bricks and bombs. They let the students get the so-called protest started, and then the real rioters show up and start doing all the property damage. And it wouldn't matter who was showing up. Whenever the students object to anything, the professional rioters get in gear, and then they call it a protest, free speech. It's the antithesis of free speech when somebody's not allowed to speak because the audience doesn't want to hear it. But, folks, it isn't new. This kind of activity, people wring their hands over it. But it happened in the 60s. It happened with the Students for Democratic Society. It happened when Reagan was governor of California. He even met with these people. It happened at Berkeley. And there was property damage. There were riots. The difference then and now is only one arrest. There was serious property damage last night, a considerable threat to innocent people, and only one person was arrested. As long as that's the case, there isn't going to be any deterrence to this. These people are still the losers. They lost in November. They have been losing, even through the 8 years of Obama. They have been losing. The Democrat Party, which is their vessel, has been losing significantly. And what's on display every day, I mean, they can act like children all day long, and they can destroy these students are destroying their school. They're destroying and doing damage where they go to college. They're inflicting all of this damage on themselves, in a sense. What has to be obvious to them is that it's not making a difference. It's not stopping Donald Trump. It's not changing the outcome of the election. And everything they're doing adds up to nothing because it isn't changing anything. Yeah, they might keep Milo Yiannopoulos off campus, but it's not stopping Donald Trump, and it's not stopping Milo Yiannopoulos. He just go someplace else or say what he was going to say on the Breitbart website. Milo probably loves it, all the notoriety, the attention, be able to cause this kind of havoc, big feather in your cap. But at the end of the day, I think what's driving the Democrat Party and the American left crazy is that what they're doing doesn't matter. It's not. They lost. They really are not affecting any change, nor are they stopping any. They're not even changing public opinion. Public opinion still a majority for Trump in what he's doing. The Democrat Party can't stop anybody. The Democrat Party can't stop any of Trump's nominees. The Democrat Party cannot stop or interrupt any of Trump's policies. It has to dawn on them, and it has to be one of the things. This is totally Hollywood celebrities are literally bat excrement, folks. They are literally. They've always been mindless, but it's on full display now. I mean, some of the things that Hollywood celebrities are tweeting out and saying. I mean, it is genuine, special kind of stupid that's on display for everybody to see now. It's not just ignorance; it is genuine stupidity. From Chelsea Handler to Sophia Bush of Chicago PD to what's her face? Lena Dunham's always been off her rocker. Lena Dunham's never been right. I mean, you just go down the list of any of them, and they're just dumb. They are dumb and stupid, and they haven't the slightest idea what they're talking about. And they haven't the slightest idea who Barack Obama really was. They don't have the slightest idea what Barack Obama was really doing. They live in a make-believe world where when people who they think like them are in power, then everything is utopian. Whether it is or isn't, they don't care to examine it. If like-minded people are in power, then it has to be blissful. It has to be wonderful. They're not even aware of what Obama was destroying. They're not aware of the damage Obama was doing. They're not aware of anything. And it's embarrassing. It literally is embarrassing that we have in this country this much concentrated stupidity and idiocy that is willing to put it all on display. They're so stupid and so ignorant, they don't even know how stupid and ignorant they are, which, of course, kind of makes sense. If you're dumb, you're dumb. They don't have any proper education, but, of course, in their minds, they are the smartest and the best and the brightest and the most aware and the kindest and the most compassionate. It's got to be blowing their minds. It's just got to be destroying them. They lost. They can't come to grips with it. The techniques that they've used in the past to intimidate and bully people into laying down and quitting and going away are not working on this administration. And because of that, they're not working on the Republican Party yet. And so it's all for naught. And they end up destroying their own houses. They end up destroying their own institutions. Berkeley is one of their institutions, one of their precious universities. And they're destroying it. They're not destroying Trump's house. They're not destroying the White House. It's a most amazing thing to see. And with each passing day, I think there's a bit more revelation. Every passing day, they realize just a little bit more how totally ineffective and irrelevant they are, it makes them go even badder. And they become even more unhinged. But if you don't have any historical perspective beyond the day you were born, I can't blame you for thinking, my God, we're losing the country. It's unraveling. That isn't what's happening. What's happening, folks, is we're reclaiming the country. What's happening is the country is being refocused. The direction of the country is being changed, and it is being reclaimed from a left that wanted to destroy it as founded, who wanted to transform it as founded. What you're seeing is a bunch of people taking their country back from people who thought they already had succeeded in transforming it. They thought that the opportunity to take this country back, to reclaim it, was gone. You and I, had been defeated. You and I were in a minority. You and I were not able to stop them. The reality is they can't hold on to what they did. They're desperately trying to. The point here is that this is going to be daily. And Trump addressed it at the prayer breakfast today. This is what it looks like. It was never going to be peaceful. The left was never going to say, you know what, you won. It was a great, great fight, and we have all the respect in the world for you. And we're going to continue our efforts to transform America, but you won. It's never going to be like that. It was never going to be them acknowledging or respecting us or the opponents. It's always going to look like this. Trump better start firing more people in the federal government, folks. Sally Yates is not the only one there trying to undermine him. Somebody's leaking these transcripts of his phone calls and then lying about what he's saying to the president of Mexico and the president of Australia. One of the best ways, one of the fastest ways to get rid of this left-wing dead weight would just be to have a policy to cut the federal government by 20%. 20% across the board. Whack, 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 whack. Just do it. But I would speed up the timetable of getting rid of every Obama and Clinton appointee that's still in positions where you can fire them. Just do it. And even when you do, this stuff is going to continue. You have to hang in, folks. So far you are. Every bit of data, polling data and otherwise, indicates you have not lost spirit. You have not lost your conviction, your courage, still supporting Trump. This is what reclaiming your government, your country, this is what it means. This is what it looks like. Take our country back. This is what it looks like. So just steel yourselves. And if you ever have any doubts, if you ever have any questions, if you ever are perhaps losing your resolve, you make sure you are here every day. Folks, are you aware that Democrats walked out of Congress to protest Abraham Lincoln? Did you know that? You didn't know that. Not surprised. I mean, most people don't. The Democrats walked out of Congress to protest Abraham Lincoln. They were afraid to lose their slaves, and they hated Lincoln. They just despised Lincoln, so they walked out. And it ended up being great for Republicans. They were able to do all kinds of things with no opposition. Let them walk out. I don't know. Judd Apatow is some worthless, irrelevant actor who doesn't know it, so he keeps tweeting things. And he tweeted something to the effect that the Berkeley riots are just the beginning, adding, when will all the fools still supporting Trump realize what's at stake? Mr. Apatow, whoever he is one of these people that still hasn't come to grips with what happened to him and his side. When will the fools in Hollywood realize that they lost and that there's nothing they can do about it? And that all they're doing is making fools of themselves. And, by the way, probably inflicting great damage on future box office. But I got to grab a call. We have Brenda here from Nashville, Tennessee, she's Australian. It's great to have you with us, Brenda. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks. Love your show. Just wanted to elaborate on the immigration situation in Australia.
Sure.
Australia is very multicultural, and we have so many, particularly Asian and Indian and various cultures in our nation now. Australia is acceptive of immigration, but the big issue dividing Australia is illegal refugee immigration. Mm-hmm. Our borders being the ocean, and Indonesia was our main problem there because it was not illegal by their country to have people trafficking. So a lot of people were making money out of boats and boatloads of people coming over from Middle Eastern countries and whatever, even knowing that a lot of businessmen were tearing up their passports coming through and, from very, very dangerous Middle Eastern countries. Some of them died at sea, and the Australian Navy tried to keep some at bay, but we had a very liberal government for a while there that, took them in, and we also have an island near Australia, one of our neighbours called Nauru, which is what became a settlement for the refugees, and like motel kind of set up, but it became overpopulated, and they got angry that they weren't being processed enough to come in to get our free medical and our,
right,
cheap
education. But this guy was an ally of Obama, correct?
Yeah. Now, the previous government and the government, both of them, Gillard, she was a good friend of Obama, seen playing ball with him at the White House, and that government, the Labor government, was very pro-Obama, very good friends with Obama, and more leaning towards socialist in their attitude, more liberal. The new government is much more is the Liberal government, which is our reverse. It's our Conservative Party. And what happened is the United Nations decreed, which is made up of a lot of little African countries anyway, that we divide and send some of these people to various countries, and Obama accepted that they take a small percentage of them. There's thousands, so 2,000, whatever it was, is a small amount. But the problem is, who knows who these people are? They haven't been vetted or processed. Now some of them,
exactly,
because we're getting stricter now with the new government, they're now going over to one particular woman said to the doctor she's going over to Holland, where they have free education for her children. She's going to come in as a Syrian refugee there.
Brenda, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm out of time. I have to stop you. But I'm so glad you called, because this is evidence. She is Australian, understands. Where this story is going is Obama had an agreement. He would take, it was about 1,500 or so in one instance, of the most dangerous militant Islamists in exchange for the Australians taking the Central American refugees, which were harmless, which opens up a whole bunch of questions. That's what Trump is shutting down, by the way. Back here in just a second. It's always the case, even with the first hour in the can and completed on the way over to the Limbaugh Broadcast Museum. We hadn't even scratched the surface of what's out there today, so we'll come back here in a brief moment and give it another stab, folks. Hang in there. Be right back before you know it. And we are back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh here behind the golden EIB microphone. Broadcast excellence. Created, perfected, and defined. Executed each day by me, America's real anchorman and truth detector and doctor of democracy. That would be L. Rushbo, the all-knowing, all-caring, all-sensing, all-feeling, all-concerned, all-aware Maharishi. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Here is the truth. Just a little bit of time here on the Trump call to the president of Mexico. This also ended up being largely fake news. This was hysterically reported by the Associated Press as Donald Trump threatening in a phone call with the Mexican president that unless the Mexican military did more to control the bad hombres down there, that Trump was going to send U.S. troops in there to fix the problem and to control it. And then the story did not contain anything to do with Pena Nieto's response. The report also said that Trump hung up. It was supposed to go for a little bit longer than it did. Trump hung up on the guy. The Mexican government said that the AP account was not accurate. But that didn't stop the AP from running with the story. And it didn't stop other outlets like the Washington Post from picking it up as well. You have a bunch of bad hombres down there, Trump told the chairman of MACO, and you aren't doing enough to stop them. I think your military's scared. Our military isn't, so I just might send them down there to take care of it. A person with access to the official transcript of the phone call provided only that portion of the conversation to the AP. The person gave it on condition of anonymity because the administration didn't make the details of the call public. Well, then it was leaked. If the administration didn't make the call public, the details, how does anybody know it? Somebody had to leak it, and it's probably somebody at the State Department. It's just somebody else that Trump needs to clear out of there. An anonymous source provides false information, i.e. fake news, about a Trump phone call with the president of Mexico and supposedly the transcript. A transcript that CNN, the purveyors, I mean, the king of the hill of fake news, even CNN says that it isn't true. Mexico's Foreign Relations Department denied the AP account, saying it's based on absolute falsehoods, and later said that the statement also applied to the excerpt provided to AP. The assertions that you make about said conversation do not correspond to the reality of it, the statement said. Anyway, it's more fake news, and it's designed to make Trump look like a fool, or like a bully, or like he's just unequipped, you know. He's just ill-equipped for the job. The guy doesn't understand how to speak diplomatically. He's just a bull in the china shop. This guy's going to get us in real trouble. And, of course, these fake stories then result in people taking action, like McCain. After the misreported thing about Australia, McCain gets hold of the Australian ambassador to the United States and essentially, he doesn't go so far as to apologize, but it's kind of like when Ted Kennedy would call whoever was running the Soviet Union during the 80s and ask him to be patient. Reagan was kind of a novice, admittedly dangerous, didn't know what he was doing, but Ted Kennedy would tell Andropov or Brezhnev, be cool, we got it under control. We got Reagan hemmed in. This is what McCain was essentially trying to comfort the Australians by saying, look, we all know this guy's not quite all there, right? Sit there, but don't sweat it because we're not going to, there isn't going to be drastic action. It's okay. The United States is still, we're still big ally of Australia. Nothing to worry about. Let me make that call. Now, let's go to the audio soundbites because Trump brings all this up in his own fashion at the prayer breakfast today. We're going to start here with audio soundbite number 11. And let's just take these in order because they are self-contained and some of them relate to things I've mentioned, some haven't. So let's just get started and deal with them as they
Today we continue a tradition begun by President Eisenhower some 64 years ago. This gathering is a testament to the power of faith and is one of the great customs of our nation. And I hope to be here 7 more times with you.
Oh! I think Trump just announced he's running for re-election in 2020. I guess Trump made news at the prayer breakfast. And here he says that people are always telling him that they're praying for him.
But most importantly today, I want to thank the American people. Your faith and prayers have sustained me and inspired me through some very, very tough times. All around America, I have met amazing people whose words of worship and encouragement have been a constant source of strength. What I hear most often as I travel the country are 5 words that never, ever fail to touch my heart. That's, I am praying for you. I hear it so often. I am praying for you, Mr. President.
They loved it. They loved it, and then they loved this.
It was the great Thomas Jefferson who said, the God who gave us life gave us liberty. Jefferson asked, can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Among those freedoms is the right to worship according to our own beliefs. That is why I will get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak freely and without fear of retribution. I will do that, remember.
Now, you know how this used to happen? Take your pick. You know, any Republican president would go up there and would never say anything like, that is why I will get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak. That's not how it would be said. In the past, it would be said, and I want to assure you, and I want you to know that I'm going to be working with the elected representatives of our party, and I'm going to be trying to cross the aisle. I'm going to be reaching out so that we can come up with a unified purpose to do everything we can do to make sure that religious people have the liberty to speak their beliefs. That's how it would happen. And nothing would happen because there would be nothing there when you cross the aisle except a bunch of flat red stop signs and a bunch of people disagreeing with him. But my point is there would be no commitment. Nothing along the lines of, I will get rid of and totally destroy the Pinko Johnson. I will not even allow a word of it to survive. None of that would ever be. We'll be working with our elected partners in Congress and doing everything we can to, and applause would erupt and nothing much would change. Here is Trump. And this is smart, by the way. He's telling everybody in his own way what I told you a half hour ago. This is what reclaiming the country looks like. Having these spoiled, rotten leftist children and the professional rabble-rousers who are being paid to do what they're doing. This is what it looks like when they raise hell. This is what it looks like. They're trying to scare you into submission. They're trying to convince you it's not worth reclaiming your country. The price is too high. Too much strife, too many explosions, too much damage, too many bombs, too much unrest, too much division. It isn't worth it. Let us have it, the left says, and they want you to back down. Here's what Trump said.
The world is in trouble, but we're going to straighten it out, okay? That's what I do. I fix things. We're going to straighten it out. Believe me, when you hear about the tough phone calls I'm having, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. They're tough. We have to be tough. It's time we're going to be a little tough, folks. We're taken advantage of by every nation in the world virtually. It's not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen anymore.
He's got that speech pattern. He repeats things that he means twice. I actually think he's actually thinking what he wants to say next when he repeats himself. I understand. Look, I'm an expert in this stuff. I'm an expert in the spoken word. I'm an expert in the First Amendment. I know how the mind works when you're improvising, and I know the various techniques and tools that people use. Because you got to keep talking. You can't stop and make it look like you don't know what you're saying next. You can't stop and then figure out where you want to go next. It has to flow. And Trump's technique is to repeat his punchline while he then decides what he wants to say next. And or you're waiting for the applause or what have you. In this case, he was waiting for the applause. But his point was, we are taking advantage. This Australia thing is a great example. Now, we weren't so much as taken advantage of as the president at the time allowed us to essentially be the sponge and take up and accept the human debris the rest of the world didn't want. Bad actors from parts of the world that inspire militant Islamic terrorism, Obama would welcome them. But you weren't permitted to make any correlation. You weren't permitted to, ask the cause and effects question. You just had to accept that Obama was smarter than the rest of us and drop it. Don't you dare ask why. If you did, you ran the risk of being labeled a racist, bigot, sexist, transphobic, homophobe, or whatever the phobes are now. Can't keep track of them. Left keeps inventing so many oddballs that I don't know what all the phobias about them are anymore. Used to be simple. Here is the Trumpster praying for Arnold Schwarzenegger's ratings on the TV show The Apprentice.
We had tremendous success on The Apprentice, and
Stop the tape.
For president,
Recue it. Again, set this up. This is the National Prayer Breakfast. Trump has just had solemn messages about prayer, religious liberty, and freedom. People asking, telling him that they are praying for him, quoting Thomas Jefferson on the power of God, the relationship of God to liberty. And then at that same prayer breakfast weekend,
we had tremendous success on The Apprentice. And when I ran for president, I had to leave the show. That's when I knew for sure I was doing it. And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster. And Mark will never, ever bet against Trump again. And I want to just pray for Arnold, if we can, for those ratings, okay?
And they started laughing, and they prayed for the ratings for Arnold Schwarzenegger. And as I said, I was watching CNN, and they had two different panels of guests assembled to discuss the mental instabilities of Donald Trump, as indicated by that comment. I mean, they were grinding their hands, wringing their hands. Does it really mean? Is he so sensitive? Is he so egocentric that the National Prayer Breakfast he just has to tell everybody how great he was? Can he not let go of his past? Can he not look to the future? Oh my God, what have we done? Have we elected somebody genuinely mentally ill? And then another panel guest would weigh in on it. And it wasn't a joke per se, but this is Trump. Pray for Schwarzenegger's ratings. I laughed. I'm not so tightly wound that this stuff offends me. And Schwarzenegger, by the way, they went out and they found Schwarzenegger. I guess they've taped a bunch of episodes because they found Schwarzenegger, some rustic home. He had his firewood stacked on the porch, and he's out there, looked like he's ready to go out and hunt big game or something. And they asked him about Trump commenting on his ratings, The Apprentice.
Hey, Donald, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
And of course, now the people at CNN, they loved that. They thought that one of the best put-downs they've ever heard. They thought Schwarzenegger owned Trump with that put-down. They thought Schwarzenegger was great. They thought Trump had to eat it on that exchange. Donald, let's change position. But Arnold's already done Donald's job in California. Need we say any more? We can ask how did it work out. Trump will double down at some point. He'll wait for the ratings, the next rating slide, and he'll have some comment about it. All right, let me take a brief timeout. We'll come back and zero back here. I want to get into immigration for a second. By the way, the Mark that Trump was referring to is Mark Burnett, creator of The Apprentice. I think he's a very religious man. He's married to Roma Downey, and they've done numerous documentaries, docudramas on the Bible. They did the latest movie version of Ben-Hur. And that's why the Apprentice even came up. I mean, the creator, Mark Burnett, was there and introduced Trump. So the fact that he did The Apprentice, Trump just didn't pull it out of the sky. He just didn't want to insult Schwarzenegger. He probably wanted to actually compliment Burnett and razz him a little bit. Hey, Mark, look what's happening since I became president. You don't have me on your show, blah, blah, blah. It's not hard to understand people like Trump. And the left, is just losing their minds because they don't have. Their lives are so sheltered. They really are. They don't understand broad-based senses of humor. They don't understand various personality types because they're so damned restrictive in what they permit. In terms of behavior, you've got to comport behavior, speech to all the rest of the things they believe to even be in their crowd, to be in their group. Otherwise, you get sent out excommunicated. So they have a very narrow world, a small world of personality types, opinions. They really have walled themselves off. And what's funny about it is they think that they represent the vast majority of people all over the world. And they're in one of the tiniest clubs. Here's George in Quincy, Illinois. George, I'm glad you called, sir. Great to have you on the program. How are you doing?
Hi, great, Rush. Yeah, I have a comment. I'll try to condense this into about 20 or 30 seconds. I know you've mentioned quite frequently that that Trump might not understand the ideologue part of the liberal attacks against him. But from the Midwest, and I've actually talked to friends out in Coronado, California, where I have several friends, and they think Trump's losing support daily. But people in the Midwest are exactly the opposite. They see Trump as stronger. And I think what Trump's doing, I think he's sly as a fox. I think what he is doing on a daily basis, baiting the liberals in the media, baiting the liberals in Hollywood to attack him, it just gets him, much like you said, every time Hillary Clinton opened her mouth, her support dropped 2%.
Yeah.
I think this is the same, what he's doing by every time Madonna says something, Trump's support goes up 2%. And it's all about Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Who cares what people out in California think? Who cares what they think in Washington, D.C. and New York? And I think Trump's playing it very smart, and I think he totally gets it.
So you think he totally understands the nature of the liberal opposition and is just tweaking them? He is baiting them. He's going out doing and saying things designed to drive them crazy because when they speak up, Trump's base loves him even more. Is that it?
I think it's a very nuanced battle because really the future of the party really lies in that upper Midwest. I mean, he's never going to. Those are the only states now that keep the Republicans in play 4 years from now and so forth. So I think he's playing it right. And I think, there's some things he could do a little bit differently, but I think he's doing a great job of holding, that area where there was thousands of Trump signs
I'm not. No. I don't disagree with that. My comment that he doesn't understand ideologically who he's up against is based on other things, not that, but a man, a legend, a way of life. Learn it, love it, live it. Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone. Donald Trump tweeted at 6:13 this morning, if UC Berkeley does not allow free speech and practices violence on innocent people with a different point of view, no federal funds? ? I mean, that hits them right in the breadbasket. I mean, that's right in the cauliflower there, folks. These people can't survive without their federal funding, without their subsidies. We looked it up. I have the numbers here, my formerly nicotine state fingers. UC Berkeley website brags that every year the UC Berkeley campus receives well over $500 million in research and other support from external sources. Of that, over $500 million, the federal government provided 55% of the funds. California state agencies and other government sources, industry, the nonprofit sectors supplied the rest. So we're basically looking at $370 million a year the federal government gives Berkeley. Just yank it. Only one arrest. You seen the video? There were fires, property damage. Why do these people, by the way, somebody needs to explain something. I got an email with a great question. Why do these crazed leftists, every time they do this, destroy a Starbucks? Isn't Starbucks, their home away from home, isn't Starbucks the quintessential liberal hangout? Why do they destroy? I mean, they literally destroyed a Starbucks. I just saw the photo. It doesn't exist. I mean, it exists, but you can't go in there. The front's off, the glass is blown out, the tables are a wreck. You have a theory why they destroy Starbucks? Oh, they're upset because Starbucks is corporatist, globalist, and corporatist. Well, that makes sense. Well, I mean, they are. I mean, this Howard Schultz guy, he's always at Davos. He's with the globalists. He's in there, but he's also for every liberal cause under the sun, including immigration, which I want to get into because I saw here. This is how easily we lose the language. Headline from one of my tech blogs: Apple and others pen open letter to Trump. We are a nation made stronger by immigrants. And here is the text. It doesn't matter which tech blog. I mean, they're all the same when they start talking politics. Last night, news broke that a collection of major technology companies, including Apple, were prepping an open letter to Donald Trump as a means to voice opposition to the immigration executive order he signed last Friday. But then when they quote the letter it's Apple, Alphabet, which is Google, and who else was part? Is Microsoft part of this? Yeah, Stripe, Facebook. Dear President Trump, since the country's birth, America has been the land of opportunity, welcoming newcomers and giving them the chance to build families, career, and businesses in the United States. We are a nation made stronger by immigrants. As entrepreneurs and business leaders, our ability to grow our companies and create jobs depends on immigrants. Look, I don't want to dispute that. What really frosts me here is the idea that Donald Trump or anybody else is opposed to immigration. We're not. On the other hand, diversity is not what built America, and immigration is not what built America. You know how I know? Every other country in the world has immigration. To one degree or another. Some are more strict than others. Some countries have been very strict and don't allow but people move to different countries all over the world. There's only one United States of America. It's not because of immigration, folks. Immigration is not the fact. Diversity has nothing to do with it. The United States is not a superpower. It's not the beacon of freedom. It's not the wealthiest nation on earth by far because of the skin color, the various variations of skin color of the people who live here, or their sexual orientation, or their gender relatability, or how they do their manicures and pedicures. None of that has the slightest thing to do with America's greatness. The greatness of Apple or Google or Facebook has nothing to do with the ethnicity, the skin color, the sexual orientation, or gender of its employees. The greatness of America has nothing to do with the external characteristics of the human body. And the greatness of the United States of America has nothing to do. It may be a bit far to say nothing to do. The greatness of the United States is not due to a policy that lets anybody in the world who wants to come here come, because that's never been the case. But to listen to these tech CEOs and others, you would think that this country has been open borders from the beginning, and that open borders and people who were not, I hate to go here, but I'm telling you what this all means. You have a bunch of leftists who are trying to tell us this country didn't become great until it was also populated by people who were not white and not Christian. That's what they want you to believe. That's the subtle message that they're putting out. That's when America when America stopped being an exclusionary white Christian nation. Now, they'll never have the guts to say that outright. Not these people. Other people do. But again, that has nothing to do with the greatness of America. Because there are people of all different surface characteristics all over the world. There's only one United States of America. So let me put the question to you. Since we've never been full-fledged open borders immigration, the best and brightest from the world get to come here. It's never been the case. It's never been the case that you want to come here, you're automatically allowed to come here. That's what the current Democrat left wants to happen in this country. They want pretty much open borders, let anybody show up. Why? Well, the answers to that question are not very satisfying because they are rooted in bigotry. These people try to portray themselves as the open-minded and tolerant non-bigots, when in fact I think it's the other way around. I think bigotry and prejudice against the founding of this country is what makes them espouse their current so-called political beliefs. Now, I can hear you shouting at the radio, but Rush, what about all the immigration from Europe and all the greatness that came in the post-war periods? I'm not denying, ladies and gentlemen, that there has been immigration. I'm just telling you that immigration, the melting pot, the external characteristics of people, their skin color, the way they like to have sex, has nothing to do with why the United States became the United States. The left wants you to believe that that's all it is. Such things as diversity and tolerance for alternative lifestyles. And that's what paves the way for... No, sorry, that's not what made America great. And it's why there's a battle on to reclaim this country, because there is a fervent desire for America to remain great and get greater, to remain strong and get stronger. And to do this, many people know we have to reclaim it from those who actually are presiding over America's decline with their ill focus on the wrong things. It all makes them sound wonderfully compassionate. It makes them sound amazingly tolerant and really cool when they talk about a nation of immigrants, and that's America's greatness. And we've never been intolerant, and we've never been restrictive, and it's a bunch of BS. We always have been restrictive. We have always, up until 1986, and maybe a little bit before that, we have always ridden herd on who gets into this country. No, I'll be happy to answer the question. If it wasn't diversity, and it isn't, and if it wasn't immigration, and if it wasn't tolerance, and if it wasn't a bunch of other kooky, left-wing, liberal cockamamie ideas that made America great, what was it? Well, you got to go back to the Constitution and our founding documents, and then you have to learn what the word assimilation means. And then you have to openly acknowledge that there was, and remains in many sectors today, a distinct American culture, distinct from any other culture in the world. An American culture that had nothing to do with the external characteristics of human beings, had nothing to do with their skin color, had nothing to do with how they like to have sex or with who or what. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with what became the whole idea of America following the founding of this country, even preceding it. The left has sought to misinterpret the founding and its associated ideals, and the whole concept of the American idea. To them, the original America idea was corrupt because it was discriminatory. It was rooted in slavery and racism and bigotry and all the other homophobic phobias. And they are modernizing and revolutionizing. And as they do, they take America further and further away from what was or what is this distinct American culture. You can go read the founding documents. You won't find the term melting pot anywhere in it. You won't find the term. I'm not opposed. Don't misunderstand. I'm not opposed to the melting pot. I'm opposed to wrong definitions. I'm opposed to people being taught the wrong things about American greatness and what explains it, what would sustain it. And when I see these clowns upset over an executive order that affects 109 people and claiming there's something un-American going on, it ticks me off. Do you realize from 1920 some odd to 1965 there was zero immigration in the United States of America? Zero? How many of you know that? Legal. From 1920 some odd to 1965, zero legal immigration. You know why? Because we had legally allowed millions to immigrate, and they needed time to assimilate. They needed time to learn English. They needed time to become accustomed with the distinctive American culture. They had, as opposed to the culture they all left, the Italians, the Polish, you name it, they all left in the post-war period seeking freedom, seeking liberty. They did not seek to balkanize this country. They didn't seek to set up Poland in Michigan and Italy in New York. They sought to become Americans while maintaining roots to their origins. But they wanted to become Americans. They wanted to learn English. They wanted to learn American customs. They wanted to learn the American track for success. They wanted prosperity and liberty and freedom, religious included. It took a while to assimilate all those millions. There isn't any assimilation happening in America today. By design, because the modern American left doesn't appreciate and doesn't like what was and always has been the greatness of America. And that's the battle we're in as they try to undo that greatness and redefine it and put this country into a constant, never-ending state of decline. I have to take a break here, but I'll be back and continue in a second. Okay, looks like the Republicans have put off the committee vote on Betsy DeVos till next week because of the defections of Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. I don't know. Maybe they're going to try to bring them back. I got to check out the details of this. And then we will be back, locked and loaded. Little Second Amendment lingo there. Yeah, just checking, see what's come in here when I was going to... Yeah, okay. Let's see. Yeah, I have soundbites 27, 28 standing by. Okay. Greetings and welcome back, my friends. Great to have you with us. El Rushbo behind the golden EIB microphone here at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. I mentioned earlier today I was watching CNN go literally bonkers over Trump praying for Schwarzenegger's ratings on the TV show The Apprentice at the National Prayer Breakfast. Now, they assembled panels to discuss this, and they were assembling panels to discuss the perhaps mental illness of Donald Trump after they'd heard about these two phone calls to the presidents of Mexico and Australia. And I want to play... Let's see, we'll do number 27 first. They're both from CNN. The first one is from this morning with Carol Costello. Oh, have you heard that Carol Costello's leaving? Oh, my God, she's betraying feminism like I can't believe. That's right, she's following her husband. Who would have thought that would ever happen? Carol Costello, who used to be assigned to stalk this program, she was a reporter at CNN. Then they made her an info babe anchor. So she'd been anchoretting, like in the morning, and now the news was that her husband got a really cool job out in California. And so she's going to follow him out there. That reminds me, when Pat Schroeder started crying on her husband's shoulder when she announced she wasn't going to run for president in I guess it was 84? Yeah. 84. Patsy Schroeder, congressperson in California, was thinking about running, and she did all kinds of focus group and polling. She's a big feminist. And she decided that she couldn't win. She had been told by her focus group research she couldn't win, and she announced that she was pulling out and broke down in tears and ran to the arms of her husband. And up till then, nobody knew she had one. And I remember there were stories. Folks, feminists wrote stories about how she betrayed them by crying over the simple fact that she was not going to run for president, and then the insult, she ran to the arms of her husband. Well, yeah, but I was still in Sacramento then. That was 1984. I hadn't started the EIB network yet. What you're thinking of, our all-time favorite Pat Schroeder story. I was invited to speak at GOPAC, which was a group that Newt Gingrich founded, and this would have been 1992 or 3, 4, somewhere in there. And no, it might have been 95 because the budget battle. That's right, the budget battle of 95 was going on. And at the time, these phantom school lunch cuts, the Democrats were accusing Republicans of starving kids. And I think back to that now, how we took that all. I had to take it seriously because the media seriously reported that Republicans wanted kids to starve. Because that's what the Democrats said. And everybody, Patsy Schroeder, Pelosi was in the group there, Dianne Feinstein, were all running around saying Republicans want to starve kids. And there was also, they were making the argument that the Republicans were so mean-spirited that they were making seniors. They wanted to cut Social Security, Medicare, which is what the Democrats always accused Republicans of, forcing our seniors to choose between dog food and medicine. So when I spoke at CPAC, I welcomed them, and I thanked them for having me. And I told them that I was up to speed on the current debate, and that I had decided my mom was going to get the dog food. But that I was going to do something for my mom. I was going to buy her a new can opener so that she could get to the dog food easier. The place erupts in laughter, as was intended. Pat Schroeder went to the floor of the House of Representatives and started talking about what I had said. And there at GOPAC, the big kahuna, Rush Limbaugh, actually said that he was going to give his mother the dog food, but that he had a special present for her. He was going to get her a new can opener. Yeah, there you have it. That's who they are. I happened to see that live, and I split my gut open laughing because she fell for it. And it kind of sets this up. I mean, who do you have to be? How tightly wound do you have to be to not recognize that a son saying he's going to give his mother dog food, but with a special president can opener? How do you take that seriously? How in the world do you take that seriously? You have to be so tightly wound. You have to be taking yourself so seriously. And I think that's what's explaining the reaction to Trump. I think all of these elites, from wherever they come, whether they come from think tanks, whether they come from blogs, they come from websites, wherever they come from, in the Washington establishment, they think they are so special. They think they are so unique. They think they are so uniquely qualified to represent, to speak for the United States of America, that when somebody like Trump comes along, they can't process it. And their sensibilities are offended, and the earth quakes underneath their feet. And they're totally humorless. I mean, literally not a single shred of a sense of humor anywhere in these people. So this bite, CNN Newsroom today, Carol Costello, selling out feminism. By the way, she's going to continue working at CNN, but she's going to headline news. She's going to the Baby Channel to follow her husband. Carol, just remember what they did to Pat Schroeder as you embark on this. I saw what NBC did to poor old Tamron Hall. But Tamron Hall, let's face it, I remember watching Tamron Hall. Maybe I better explain this. There might be people that don't know. Anybody out there ever heard of Megyn Kelly? Wendy, you know who Megyn Kelly is? Okay. She used to work at Fox. And then NBC came along and they hired her away for a big amount of money. But she has a contract that lasted until June or July with Fox. So she's unable to appear until that period expires. It's called a non-compete. So she can't appear anywhere until June or July. Well, the news is that NBC, who hired Megyn Kelly, is going to put her on NBC in the first or second hour after the Today Show. So there's Today Show goes 7 to 9 a.m., and then the first hour is 9 to 10, and the second hour is 10 to 11. And in that mix, you've got Kathy Lee and Yoda, and you have Al Joker and Tamron Hall. And Tamron Hall is a woman of color. She is African-American. She is from Chicago. I happen to know that because I saw her going nuts over Obama back during the 2008 campaign, which is at MSNBC. I know who this babe is. So she's being displaced by Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly's going to be hired, and Tamron Hall is out. And they didn't tell her. They gave her 30 minutes notice before they made the announcement. So she quit, leaving a bunch of money on the table at NBC. Al Joker, very upset. He's not quitting, though. They don't know what's going to happen to Kathy Lee and Yoda. But they'll probably end up in the third hour or something. Whatever. But they're setting up for Megyn. But anyway, the point is that an existing anchor at NBC has been swept aside for the incoming Megyn Kelly. Is that what the story you had? Yeah. Who? Tamron Hall? Tamron Hall worked very hard. So you think she's being shafted here? Wow. You're on her side then. You think she's being totally disrespected, and you're glad that she stood up for herself and walked away from what is it, 5 or 6 million she walked away from? Is she married? That might make a difference. I'm just kidding. No, feminists don't come down on that. Just, a little Trumpy in here, just having a little laugh. Well, Carol Costello, she's following her husband to California. They haven't had a stalker since she got the anchor beat. I don't think they'll assign a new stalker. They're too busy. Fake news on Trump. Anyway, I didn't mean to get sidetracked here, folks. But here's the bite. This is after Trump prayed for Schwarzenegger's ratings at the National Prayer Breakfast. So here's on the panel Ryan Lizza from the New Yorker, Julian Zelizer. Or Zelizer, he's a professor of history at Princeton. and Costello, who says, I don't even know what to make of this. He just prayed for Schwarzenegger's ratings. What? I don't know what to make of it. Do you?
I can't believe this is what the president's talking about right now, that he's engaged in ratings back and forth with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The serious part for people is it points to something deeper, a kind of vindictive nature that we see in Donald Trump, now President Trump, that worries people. How does this kind of attitude play out on foreign policy, or how will it play out on Capitol Hill? When you hear this, I think it can raise some red flags.
To me, it suggests that Trump is having difficulty adjusting to the role of president, and he's still got a foot in his previous life. He's still monitoring and obsessed with the parts of his life before the presidency, which I do find a little unusual.
You know what I think this is? I'm going to struggle to say what I really mean here. Not that I'm afraid to say it. I just want to find the right word. I think these people, two things are going on. They take themselves so damn seriously, for one thing. But they also have lived sheltered lives growing up, and they're continuing to live sheltered lives. They don't understand how real people talk and think and do things, and it scares them. They do not, folks, they don't hang around with people unlike themselves. They hang around with other people who are afraid of their shadows. They hang around with other people who are obsessed with the right way to speak and the right way to dress and the right opinions to have and the right schools to have come from, the right restaurants you attend, the right friends. And they end up living closed-off lives. And they live in a part of the country that's unlike anywhere else. And I don't think they know how people, they can't comprehend how middle America thinks and votes for Trump. They do not understand how normal people think and how they talk. And as such, it scares them. And since they have this air of superiority among themselves, that anything other than what they are is lesser than they are, dangerously so. And so now we have this guy, Trump, who they can't understand why he would jag Schwarzenegger over ratings. Is it because these people have never really had to compete for what they have? Is it because they've never really had to fight for what they have? Is it because they're all in the same club and they all go from newspaper to newspaper to network to blog site to blog site, earning a little bit more money each time? Then maybe they'll take some time and go work for a congressman, be a spokesman. But they all live in this tiny little world where everybody's identically the same in terms of the way they define themselves and the way they speak and their outlook. And then you have a guy like Trump who is of the real world. People tease each other all the time. Yes, Mr. Limbaugh, but this is not proper conduct for heads of state. Heads of state do not, for example, when Mr. Trump calls the president of Mexico, he doesn't insult that nation's military. Who says? Anyway, these people are so arrogant that they assign to Trump the abnormalcy, the irregularity, the out of the ordinary, the odd, the kooky, when I think it's them who define all of that. I think it's these people who are cocooned and shut off. Political correctness determines everything they think and say. They have no sense of humor. And when you don't have a sense of humor, if you don't have a sense of humor, you are never going to understand a Donald Trump. You're never going to understand a me. You're always going to be threatened by somebody like me. Too outspoken, too insulting, too whatever they think it is. Now, there's the next bite. Let me look at this time. Nope, I'm going to take a break. I got to take a break. Otherwise, I won't have enough time to set this up. All right, welcome back. Great to have you. Most listened to radio talk show in America, most talked about show, most talked about host here at the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Okay, this afternoon on CNN's Wolf Blitzer show, he spoke with their global affairs correspondent. CNN's correspondent for global affairs. That means whatever happens around the world, This is the reporter they go to. That reporter's name is Elise Labott. Speaking of which, reminds me of Rabbit, you know what, I had Groundhog Day today. And the environmentalist wackos are fed up with it, and they want to end it. For two reasons. They think it's misuse of the groundhog, and the second thing is the groundhog said 6 more weeks of winter, and that doesn't jibe with global warming. And you know what? They don't even, it's not even a groundhog. Do you know that it's a marmot? Not even a real groundhog that they use. Punxsutawney Phil is a phony. A marketing imposter. Fake groundhog. A marmot. Right, exactly. Anyway, here is the global affairs correspondent on CNN, Elise Labott, responding to Wolf Blitzer, says, hey, Wolf. No, he says, hey, Elise, there's no guarantee that those refugees that Australia is kicking out there, there's no guarantee that they could come to the United States following vetting.
There were some reports that the president hung up on the prime minister. I'm told that's not entirely true, but I was told it was a very tense phone call. And I just think it goes to this style of this president. You know, look, his in-your-face kind of bull in a china shop style got him elected, very popular among a large section of the American people. But there's just a language that you use in diplomacy and around the world and a formality, especially when you're getting to know these world leaders and forming a relationship with them, that I think is being lost. To say that this is a bad deal and it was stupid and I can't believe you did it, and then to go on Twitter and call it dumb. I mean, these world leaders' heads are spinning right now.
As maybe they should be. You see, there is a decorum here. There is a sense of propriety, and Trump is violating. You don't call him stupid. You don't call a deal dumb. You don't call it bad. And you don't go tweet about it. Well, what are we supposed to do then? Just sit by and let the deals Obama made happen and have a bunch of unvetted Islamic jihadists or potential Islamic jihadists admitted into the country? This is what Trump said he was going to stop. This is an example of what Trump meant when he said, our leaders are dumb, we're being taken advantage of. We, the United States, are bearing much more of a burden of all of these world problems. And that's fine if there's a thank you, if there's some gratitude, if there's some assistance. But if it gets down to we just have to do it and we have leaders willing to for it, I'm not putting up with that anymore. And he's exactly right about it. But you see, their sensibilities are being so upset because it is they who take themselves so seriously. And they're worried about, well, what are they going to do to the United States? You're looking at it the wrong way, Elise. The other way around is how you need to look at it. Hey, get this story. Headline, prominent Putin critic hospitalized after sudden organ failure. What's this? One of Russian President Vladimir Putin's fiercest critics is in the hospital after suffering sudden organ failure, according to the BBC. Opposition activist and journalist Vladimir Kara-Murza is on life support in a medically induced coma, according to his wife. She said the clinical picture was identical to that of an incident in 2015 when the same guy was almost killed from sudden kidney failure. So a Russian journalist who is one of Putin's loudest critics is in a medically induced coma on life support after suffering sudden organ failure for the second time in 2 years. Can you imagine what the drive? Imagine the fake news editors at this moment. This story's just cleared the wire. Imagine you're an editor at CNN and you see this, the same as I'm seeing it. What do you think their take on this is? Oh, wow. Putin killed another opposition, and they're thinking, how long is it going to be before Trump does this? Oh, my God, which of us is going to end up in a hospital with organ failure? Which one of us is Trump going to target? Because they think, obviously, you can tell the way this thing is written, that the drive-bys think that Putin gave the guy polonium-210. Here's Bill in San Diego. Bill, great to have you. I'm glad you waited.
Hey, Russ. I just have a question. Do the police want to arrest the rioters, the protesters that turn into a riot? Because you'd think by now they'd have some type of strategy, maybe like the dye packs they use for banks where it explodes. If they shoot off some dye packs into the crowd where they're doing the riots, paints them, and they're able to extract them later and charge them, because you don't see that. And also, because we're busy working, your audience, and you watch the cable news, what was the response of the Democrats with all the national media going to them, asking them if they're going to denounce their supporters and what they're going to do to stop it?
Wait a minute. What? I've got a bad phone connection here. What was the last thing you said? What? Since I can't see what's on TV, what's the response? Democrats, national media, asking them if they're going to denounce their support. What's that about?
Yeah, well, because they go to Trump and ask him if they're going to stop his supporters from doing violence, which was the Democrats paying for it. Did they go to the Democrats?
Oh, you're talking about during the campaign. Oh, okay. So during the campaign, they went and said, hey, Trump, when are you going to stop your mad supporters from ripping things? It turns out it wasn't Trump supporters doing it. They were Hillary campaign activists. This has been documented to be true. Project Veritas video uncovered Robert Kramer, husband of Jan Schakowsky, Congresswoman in Illinois, working for Hillary Clinton's campaign, admitting that he hired for $1,500 a person people to show up at Trump rallies and cause violence. But the media did ask Trump, whoa, when are you going to shut down your people? When are you going to tell your people to stop the violence? And so he's asking here, when are the Democrats going to tell these people in Berkeley to stop it? It's a great question. They're not going to tell them to stop it. They are encouraging. Folks, do you think Obama might have something to do with this? I'm not saying per se, because this stuff has been going on for time immemorial. But it was just last week that Barack Hussein issues a statement encouraging the people who are protesting, encouraging the opposition. And this is the guy who said, they bring a knife to a gun, to a fight, we bring a gun, or something like that. Yeah, I think Obama has tacitly encouraged this kind of stuff. And not just last week, but during his entire regime. And what are we talking about? We're talking about Berkeley. Do you want to have it across the bay at San Francisco? San Francisco City? The San Francisco Police Department told ICE and the FBI, screw you, we are not capturing illegal aliens using San Francisco as sanctuaries. The police department, not the mayor, not the city council, the San Francisco cops told ICE, if I have this right, I think I saw this morning. If I'm wrong about this, I can get this corrected before the program's over, but I'm sure I saw this, that it was the police department specifically telling some federal law enforcement agency that they were not going to try to apprehend people violating the sanctuary city law. These leftists, you have to understand out there, Bill, the leftists have strategically placed themselves in countless places, in countless bureaucracies, including fire departments and police departments, and in every other avenue of bureaucracy that you can think. They're everywhere. It's been a tactic. It's been a strategy. To be put into positions in the bureaucracy where you can't be voted out because you're not voted in. You are a career appointee, per se. Listen, and the training occurs at many top-flight universities, including in the Ivy League. Your idea of paint dye on all the protesters to be able to identify them later, just round them up at the time. They're all there. Just grab the paddy wagons and round them up and arrest them. I mean, this is clear. These are not misdemeanors these people are engaging in. This is pure felony. This is property destruction. This is wanton attempt to maim and injure. You know, this isn't just idly marching down the street and throwing chewing gum at people. and spitballs. There was only one arrest of this whole thing in Berkeley. Let me take another quick time out. I can't believe that time is flying by here, folks, but it does every day. Hey, did you all hear? This news is it's almost being covered up by the drive-by media. Have you heard the news that the Hillary Clinton campaign is blaming Obama for her defeat? You haven't heard that? Oh, yeah. The root of it is the Hillary campaign thinks Obama is largely to blame for not I can't do this, but it's true, for not doing enough on Russian hacking. Right here it is. Charlie Rose mentioned it today on the CBS this morning. So you have reports, for example, the Hillary campaign thought it began with Obama not doing enough in terms of the Russian hacking. It's from this new website, Axios. This Jim Van, the people who created Politico are off to their new venture here. News like nothing has ever been done before, some such thing. Axios is the name of the website. Look, if Obama is responsible, and I don't know why these people, Hillary lost because she was a candidate. It isn't any more complicated than that. She's a lousy candidate. People rejected Hillary Clinton in 2008. They did it again this year. But if they want to lay this off on Obama, the way to do it would not be to blame him for the Russian hacking and not doing enough there. The way to do it would be to blame him for making the campaign about him. If I'm the Hillary campaign and I really think Obama's to blame, I'd go out there and say every time he woke up and made a campaign appearance, it was about continuing his agenda. It was about reelecting him. It was about how we needed to elect Hillary to make sure that he stayed alive. What the hell was that? That's what I would say if I were the Clinton campaign. But they're so fixated on the Russian hack that they can't get past it. David in Pekin, Illinois. Glad you waited, sir. It's great to have you with us. How are you?
Well, this is quite an honor, Rush. Glad I got through.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you did, too.
I've listened to you on the radio and the Ditto Cam and the MP3s. The first time I ever listened to you on a cell phone. And I'm just happy my battery lasted. But here's what I want to tell you about. My father, somehow, shortly after my mother passed away, tuned into your radio program. Now, I've been a fan for a long time, but I really hadn't mentioned to him, and he found you by himself. And he always voted Democrat. But he kept listening to you, and he'd come up with comments like, who's this blowhard guy, Rush Limbaugh? And
right.
What's this talent on loan from God stuff?
Yeah.
And my dad was always a very religious man, and so I'd say, well, Dad, isn't all talent God-given? And he'd reply, well, you're right, but he's still a blowhard. But he never missed a program. My dad lived a conservative lifestyle, but just voted Democrat.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, you struck a chord with him. Well, time passed, and my father became legally blind. And I got to I think it was George Bush's second election, and I picked up his ballot form, and I took it in, and I said, okay, Dad, how do you want to vote? And I was going to put down whatever he told me. And he says, vote me straight Republican. Well, I looked at him. I said, well, Dad, I applaud your attitude, but you've always voted Democrat. You voted for Clinton twice. And he looked up at me and he said, well, I was wrong. And I just wanted you to know how you converted a lifetime Democrat into being a Republican.
From blowhard to straight ticket.
That's right, the straight ticket. And my dad left us in 2007. I've been wanting to call you in and tell you this story for a long time. And I finally retired in 2016, and I've been listening to Busy Signals for about a year, but I finally got to it.
Well, I'm glad you did. What a way to end it. You've made my day here today, David.
Well, that's great. I'm happy that Mr. Snerdley said stay on topic. I just wanted to quickly tell you about I bought my 5-year-old grandson all your audio CDs. He's 5 years old. He listens to a CD player before he goes to bed. And he lives in Phoenix, and I'm in Illinois, and I can't read to him, so I got a stand-in, you.
Oh, man, this is incredible. This is absolutely. Oh, look, hang on here, because we've got a Rush Revere little goodie gift bag that we can send your grandson if you'll send us his address, if you'll give it to us. So don't hang up. And you'll be rejoined with Mr. Snerdley, who I think will give you a gold star for your call today. I thank you again, David, very much. We'll be right back, folks. I just realized this is Thursday already, so that means open line Friday tomorrow. And on a personal note, it also means there's not going to be another Apple beta software update this week, which saddens me. I'll get over it. They never happen on Friday until the end of the cycle. We're nowhere near there, so be at least Monday or Tuesday. Means I got to wait a long time. Super Bowl, I don't even care this year.